Welcome to the Employment Wednesday podcast with Yvonne Shabangu. Have you heard of the scripture Hosea 4, verse 6? My people perish because of the lack of knowledge. The same applies to your career. When you don't know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, you are likely to make wrong career choices. But worry not. Employment Wednesdays is here for you to offer you all the answers relating to your career and offer you strategies to develop your career. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. You are welcome to another episode of Law Without Borders. And today's going to be a very interesting episode. I'm so excited for it. But I'd like to put a disclaimer before I introduced our guest for today. I had to summarize your bio. So don't be shocked, like, where's some of my titles? I had to summarize it because if I was to share it all, we'll probably need a full season of Employment Wednesdays. So yeah, we are seated today with Bongani Luthuli, an LLB graduate from the University of Johannesburg, postgraduate in corporate law, University of Johannesburg, an admitted attorney of the High Court, and director of Bongani Kanyilega Luthuli Attorneys, an acting judge of the Labour Courts of South Africa, a conference speaker, a radio resident guest for various radio stations, including Ukhozi FM, Power FM, and many other radio stations. And he is an author of 2 books, one titled The Struggle for Visibility and another Not Afraid. And he is a habitual lecturer of labor law at the University of Johannesburg and Eduvos, and he is an award-winning Legal Rising Star 2024, and he also got an award for Corporate Lawyer of the Year 2024 by Fortuna Global Excellent Awards in Dubai. Even if I cut it short, it still feels like a lot. That's hectic. Thank you so much for honoring my invite. You are welcome.
Evening, Yvonne, to you and your guests as well, and the audience. Yeah, it's a pleasure, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah. What a bio. I think you are what I would say is career unicorn. You make the legal profession look colorful because there are misnomers that when you get a law degree, you're just going to be an attorney. If not an attorney, you're going to be an advocate. And we don't even know how we get to be judges and all of that, but I guess that's why you're here today. So before we go into our conversation, I'm firstly going to do shout outs. Guys, if you want me to shout you out, make sure that you're commenting, make sure that you're subscribing, make sure that you're liking. So the first shout out goes on to Sabina Ivy Ramaseli, and she says, the best interview. I really enjoyed this one. This was the episode with Atlahan Govuza. Make sure that you check it out. It's so good. And then another special shout out goes to Sbusiso Mngadi. He says, I'm currently studying generative AI, machine learning, and deep learning via Microsoft Learning. Let's upgrade forward to and expand our knowledge in technology. And then the other shout out goes to Steadfast Love, who says, you are a great interviewer, very engaging. Thank you so much. Keep commenting, keep sharing, and keep liking. And remember to use the option for memberships as well as thanks. Just click on thanks and you will see what happens thereafter. So now we're going to go into the icebreakers, right? This is where we get the tea. So the first one would be, if you were to describe yourself as a car, what type of car would you be and why?
My recent acquisition, Tiguan.
Really? Okay. Why? Why Tiguan?
Comfort, speed.
Okay.
Speed as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
I believe in acceleration.
Okay.
I think that sums up my career so far.
Yeah.
From 2014, from admission. It's been a divine acceleration.
Yes. And you're moving. The 9 years look like you've been doing it for 20 years.
It feels like 2 years. If you ask me.
Okay, so which drink best describes your personality?
Which?
Drink best describes your personality.
Red Bull gives you wings.
Okay. All right. So which means we're in for a treat. Red Bull. Okay. One must go. Your experience as a lawyer or your books and why?
One must go.
Yeah.
My goodness, tough one because they're both intertwined to what I do. But because the book is part of my triple heritage, which is the third leg is the law. So the books can go because the law is my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I just intellectualize on the books.
Okay.
Very hard though. Very hard. Yeah.
All right. I mean, also you can always write new books, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And then summer or winter?
I'm not a winter baby. I was born in summer and I love summer.
Okay, winter can go.
Yeah, winter can go.
Okay, soccer or traveling?
That's an unfair one.
I knew that it was going to be unfair. You know, when I was preparing these icebreaker questions, right?
Unfair.
I put it down as like soccer or traveling because it was just an assumption. Then I went on LinkedIn
And you saw that.
I saw a picture. I'm like, yes, this is a perfect one.
You got me here, Yvonne. But I suppose because I've now been beaten with traveling bag, I can let go of soccer.
Oh,
Gingerly,
really?
very, very gingerly.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine then. So now we are going to go into the start of your career.
Yes.
As a child, what did you want to be? Like high school level?
Yes. I haven't had an opportunity growing up to think of something else other than the law, because when I was 5, my dad said to me, "You're going to be a lawyer."
Really?
Yes. God bless his soul. He wanted to be a lawyer, and so he lived that dream through me, or he hoped at least he would. And so he uttered these words at about 5 years. In fact, when he named me, now because I'm a Pan-Africanist, I ditched the name Maxwell, which is the name I used from primary to high school. Then when I went to varsity, I said I'm Bongani because I was a Pan-Africanist.
Was Bongani your second name?
Yeah. Well, we had to go to schools with English names.
Okay.
So Bongani is my first name. The English name was Maxwell. But that was my dad in his last days. When I had a last conversation with him, I asked him, "Why didn't you name me Maxwell?" And he loved it. He never called me Bongani.
Yeah.
He called me Maxwell. He said to me, "No, I called you Maxwell because there's a lawyer who was Abraham Lincoln's legal advisor.
Okay.
His name was something Maxwell. His
Okay.
name was Maxwell. And therefore you are Maxwell because I
you're
wanted
gonna
you
be a
to be a
lawyer."
lawyer."
Okay.
I embraced the name in hindsight, but still I prefer Bongani.
Okay.
So that's how I became, so I knew that I was going to be a lawyer. Then in high school, I did speech and drama, highly influenced by my drama teacher, Mr. P. Moodley, who would later do his admission as an advocate, Circle of Life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he's still teaching to this day. So P. Moodley taught me English and taught me drama. And then later on, his wife taught me English, Y. Moodley. Then I fell in love with drama. Then when I got to choose a university and I went to UJ, Wits first. I approached them. They said I could choose between, I asked for law and drama. Then law was no longer available. They said drama. And I said drama. And my aunt was like, no. Remember, you went there for law. So I sort of also live drama through the theater, attendance, watching plays and reading plays. So that was a close second to law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you never got to think of any other thing beyond the law. So from primary school all the way to high school, you've always thought yourself to say, okay, I'm going to be nothing else, but I'm not going to be anything else but a lawyer. There were no curiosity as to I could be a doctor, could be an engineer.
No, none whatsoever. I knew at least I could not be a doctor because I couldn't count.
Okay.
For the life of me. I still can't count. I knew then accounting also, my family has a history of the accountants there. We've got about 2 CAs now. I knew I wasn't going to be that as well. So because of the early inculcation into the written word, I fell in love with the written word from age 12.
Okay.
And so I loved comprehension, and the only thing that could give me comprehension was law, and I felt this is it. I became a head boy at high school, speaking for other people. First RCL, we called it back then, class reps, and then head boy. So I thought I was cut out for being a lawyer. Plus, they said I talk too much. So. Yeah.
Okay, so how was your high school life like? What was the biggest highlight of your high school, if you can remember?
Close second first would be being a head boy.
Okay. Was it expected or
it wasn't because normally head boys come from 12A. I was at 12D.
Really?
Never in the history of that school, Genji Secondary in Merebank, has there been a head boy and a head girl from anywhere else other than A,
The
at
A
least B.
class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, with me, there was a guy who still, well, I still see him on socials. His name is Christian Mzobe. He was sharp at chess, a maths Olympiad. And so it was between me and him. And now, what gave me, I'm told, a competitive edge was ultimately Principal DG Naidu, who had a deciding vote.
Okay.
Now, his vote went my way because I was a preacher at school. So the moment that, and it links up to this now, to answer your question, there was a sad event where I was in grade 10. In grade 12, a student died, and she was caught in the crossfire coming from school.
Shame.
As she got off the bus station was here, her home was here. There was a high chasing incident between the police and some criminals. And so when they were shooting each other, she got caught in the crossfire and died and fell over her yard. And then at that time, Peggy Cele, who's now known, was little known then, I was Minister of Transport and then Minister of Education, also was in Akrone and KZN. They both came. So we had a massive assembly. And then the principal said, go call Maxwell, as I was called, to come and minister. So I then came and I ministered at this grand service. And souls were won. And then ultimately, SCO was registered as a formal institution at the school. And that was the turning point for me. That's that moment I will never forget. We were weeping, but also God used it for the good. Romans 8:28.
Yeah.
With that incident, as souls were saved and teachers started attending SCO. And I left a legacy of a formidable structure at SCO. So that was a turning point for me.
So basically, the grace set you apart.
It
to
did.
say, let him be chosen.
It's always been. It's always been the favor. It's always been the grace. In everything I touched, you know, I can. There's nothing that I can say I worked for with my own hands. Of course, we do prepare. We have to do our bit in terms of getting ready for those opportunities when they come. But the orchestrator of events picks and chooses. Jeremiah 29:11, Jeremiah 29:4. You know, all those scriptures speak to who we are.
Yeah.
I knew you before you were born. You know, I prophesied and I made you a prophet while you were still in your mother's womb. I see that playing out every day because there are things that, for instance, takes people 20 years and I achieve them in a few space. I mean, I've got probably over 11 reported judgment that I've argued. That are the ones now that I've now reported as an acting judge in my first stint.
Yeah.
That's favor. That's grace. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Love that. Okay, so now you become head boy and then now you apply for universities. Is there a particular reason why your applications were limited to VETS and UJ?
Actually, they were not.
Or did you apply elsewhere?
I actually didn't apply at Vets in UJ. At KZN, I don't know whether they still have that now. They had what we call CA or Central Applications Office.
Okay.
So you send your marks to this. I think it's an organization. They then take your marks and distribute it to all universities across KZN.
Okay.
So mine got the attention of UKZN for law, University of Zululand, Ongoye, and then UKZN called me and they said, "Look, we are offering you space. Also, it will come with a bursary." I said, "Thank you. Can you just hold it for me? I just not go to Joburg."
Yeah.
I felt a strong unction to go to Joburg. I felt always as I was at high school, somehow I feel my destiny is in Joburg. So I went to Joburg without applying. My
Wow.
aunt was already staying there.
Okay.
So my aunt took me in. I went to first Vets. Vets told me, "No, we have the drama class again." It
So
triggered
this
that
is where
passion.
you
Yes.
walked in.
I walked in. I was a walk in. And
Okay.
and I said, and said, no. Remember law. You haven't come all the way. I love drama and I've got friends in the space who are thespians. But he said, "You're not gonna do drama. You're gonna starve."
Yeah. The stigmas
Yeah.
around being an actor and all of that.
Unfair, albeit. I then went to UJ. There's a profound story at UJ. So I walked in. She later became a friend of mine. Her name was Esmeralda. She's still in the faculty. Sitting there, I walked in and said, "I'd like to have a space." says to me, "Oh no, we're fully booked here. You can't."
Is this Dr. Faree?
No, not El Marie, not El Marie.
Oh,
I would
okay.
meet El Marie later on.
Okay.
This is Esmeralda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was a faculty officer. She sat at the reception. No, she sat at the reception. And I don't know where I got the boldness from. I said to her, "Ma'am, I didn't come all the way from KZN to be told by you to go back home.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to your senior."
Okay.
Can you imagine? I just finished matric. I've never been this assertive. Hence, I feel there was a divine unction on that and exchange. She says, "Okay, fine. Suit yourself. Go down the passage. You'll find the faculty officer." I went there. I remember the name, Mrs. Horak.
Okay.
She sat at the last door on the 7th floor. So I went there. And as I walked, it was those days of PCs, 2006, January. Those big PCs. And behind the PC, there was an animal, there was a frog hanging for dear life in the mouth of a snake with the words, "Do not give up." So I walk in, I said, "I'm not going to give up." And she laughs. She almost falls off the chair. So now you're catching my own
So
words.
you read it out loud. Like,
Yeah, I'm not giving up.
Okay.
And I said, "Have a seat." I said, "I'm looking for a space." She says, "We have literally about 1,000 on the waiting list." We completed our pre-selection process around August the previous year, in 2005. And she shows me the list, and I could see, says, and then the Holy Spirit said, "Just move your statement," because we didn't have the results with the statement. So I just pushed my statement to her. She looked, says, "You know what? I'm not promising anything, but I'll come back to you."
Okay.
I decided there and there, I'm not going to another university because I'd been to it. I'm like, I'm going back home. I had faith. Got back home. That was a Monday. Tuesday, I hadn't even unpacked yet. Wednesday, I got a call from UJ. "Hey, come and register. We've accepted you for law."
Wow.
And then UKZN calls later on. I said, "Hey guys, thank you for the
I'm
offer,
good.
but I'm sorted now." I went
Yeah.
to register that Friday. And again, through God's providence, they sent me to the academic office, the financial office. I went to the financial office. Now, again, the circle of life. They said to me, "Oh, you were a head boy." I said, "Yes." Now we've got a bursary called a leadership bursary.
Oh, nice.
That's going to take your studies across 2006. And I had that. I had accommodation. And until I finished my studies, most of it was covered through the benevolence of friends, as well as the university, because of the fact of the some of the bursaries I was getting in between. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I guess also it speaks to divine orchestration. And there's something that I once heard from one of my mentors where she says that God always leaves us signals to who we are supposed to become. So pay attention to those signals. When you think about it, it wasn't by chance that you were a head boy. You know, you were in 12D, you had no business being a head boy. I'm sure you thought to yourself, why me? But again, God orchestrated it because he knew that that was the door that was going to open funding for you, you know, and I think it's just so beautiful that you've always yielded to that call and even that confidence that a lot of people lack to say, go there, knock. I believe, I always say to people, the worst thing that could happen is a no. And that's fine.
That's it. And you can live.
That's fine. Yeah, like
You
I
can
mean,
live with
you
that.
can move on to the next one, you know. So
yeah.
that very confidence of saying, you know what, you're telling me that it's fully booked, but I'd like to speak to somebody that's higher than you.
Yeah.
And you know what, they still telling me that it's still fully booked, but here's what I have to offer.
I love that. I love that because we're not, Yvonne, we don't move through stimuli.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
Our steps are ordered by the Lord. So every single move, sometimes you may feel that you're regressing, but it's all part of the bigger plan.
Yeah,
There's some things probably we may get there later on in the conversation where I feel like this is the biggest move of my life. Why did I take the step? But then I realized that every door leads to another.
Yeah.
And so how I even end up here today, because something happened where I was, you know, and I'm sitting with you here today. And then you sit down and you look at, it's so amazing how God works things. We just need to let go.
Yeah.
And let go and say, you know what, just do as you wish
That
with
is-
my life.
that is so
and
true.
stop trying to be in control
That is
of
so
what
true.
happens in our lives. you
That
know?
is so true. Letting go and allowing God to
Yeah.
take over the control. And I love also the beauty of saying, like, relinquishing control means that sometimes God will use the most foolish things.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
most foolish things, the
Yeah.
things that we don't think are going to be utilized. Because as people, as human, we use our own intelligence to decide to say, I'm going to be the biggest lawyer in the country. But God will be like, nah, that's not what I'm going to
Yeah.
use to take you to
Yeah.
nations. I will use your voice, or I'll use this particular thing that you
Yeah.
may not think is the very thing
Oh,
that's going to make you blow
that's
up.
prophetic, because that's the founding scripture I used since I came across it. The base things of the world, the despised things of the world, He has chosen to put to shame the things which are. And so that was a blueprint early on in my life to say, if you can use anything, you can use me. And there's been so many platforms where you stand and you just want to pinch yourself, like somebody with a name could have stood here.
Yeah.
Somebody with a greater eloquence could have stood here. But here I am, a boy from Mlazi, sitting here and addressing thousands and international platforms. And that's the grace. And every time it's a humbling moment for me to go back to say, it's all God, it's all God, it's all God.
Love that. How was your transition between high school into university? Do you think high school prepared you for what university would be like?
The only way I would think, maybe not so much intellectually,
Okay.
with due respect to the curriculum. I don't think much has changed. There's a huge gap between the academic expectations and demands of high school and university. It's also in the way we think. High school seems to me like they want you to just almost like vomit back the information they've given you.
Yes,
You know?
CPF,
That's it.
10%
Yeah,
forget.
that's it.
Yeah.
And at university, it's application. It's not true or false. It's here are set of facts. Deconstruct the most complex phenomena. You're like, but I wasn't taught this at the foundation stage. And you find that the person who was getting distinctions at high school is failing and is kicked out by the system at university because of that. So that particular transition wasn't I wasn't academically prepared for, but again I survived it. At some point, in certain instances, excelled in it because again maybe the grace and the calling. But what did prepare me is the spirituality that underpinned my experience at high school. So I was so deeply entrenched spiritually that, as I told you, I was a preacher throughout high school. I got to UJ and I preached. And I was part of the SCO at UJ. It was business as usual. But those spiritual foundations embedded these values and inculcated these deep convictions within me that became a lodestar for me. So I then, the ability to have good character, I made mistakes, of course, time to make mistakes at university, but the majority of my experience there, nobody could impugn my character because of the foundation at home, because the foundation scripturally and spiritually.
Yeah.
So at least I was kind of prepared. There were huge temptations as well, but I suppose I some of them I passed, some of them I failed. But you know what? It's again that grace of growing up in church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you left with your character intact because of the principles.
That can be argued whether intact or not. But I can say safely that there's no occasion where people can say, that one is questionable. if I did my things, God was good to cover up certain things that.
But internally, you would know that.
I know. Oh Lord,
I fumbled there.
I remember Mandela's words. I'm no saint, but if you call somebody who falls down and rises again, then I am a saint. Then who is a sinner. And in that sense, I subscribe fully to those words as well. Yeah.
Okay. So then now you get through university.
Yeah.
Did you know the available options that you had with your law degree?
Oh, the only option for me that I cared to even look at was the attorney profession.
Okay.
They tried to bring law firms, some of the members of the bars, to speak to us about the various professions. There were also members of the academia to tell us there are options other than being an attorney or an advocate. I turned quite a deaf ear to all of them because I just wanted to be an attorney.
Okay, you were certain.
I was certain.
Okay.
and it looked like I was set because I had articles the final year of my studies, so I
Okay.
was quite chilled.
Okay. So
But
it
but
was
then but then I got retrenched the first day.
okay.
So and then now I'm unemployed and I've got this degree. You read that, my brother. I've got a postgrad. It wasn't planned.
Okay.
It was now. What are you gonna do with yourself?
Okay.
Because I work in another firm here in Rosebank. It was a huge firm back then.
Before we even go
Yeah,
that far, right?
yeah.
I just want how was the process of you finding articles? Was that easy? Did you just send out your CVs and then voila, you got your articles?
It wasn't easy.
Okay.
I did send out CVs. There were interviews. I went to this one because I literally sent it to this one firm because I liked them. They were medium to big.
Okay.
I sent it to them. They called me and they took me.
Okay.
I think they had about 7 CAs.
Okay.
But I need to talk about the experience now of looking because after that, I then became unemployed.
Yeah.
Because the first day they said, "Oh no, look, we're not back we haven't recovered from the credit crunch of 2008. It's now 2010. We actually need to retrench all of you guys, and then we'll keep 2
Really?
of the 7." And I fell out, so they say, because of I didn't have a driver's license. As a criteria, it went down to that as selection criteria. Now you see why I'm doing labor law. I was a victim of a Section 189 on day one.
Okay.
And so I then decided to continue as an academic here, and I took on postgraduate corporate law, and I started. Now this experience was a lesson in humility. I took my CV, I printed my CV, and I went to a building called Shana Chambers. That's opposite High Court
Okay.
on Pritchard Street. It's a bunch of lawyers that sit there and advocates, and floor by floor, distributing my CV to those receptionists. I won't forget some of them looking at me saying, "Oh, we probably won't call you." I'm like, "Why? We don't like people walking in handing CVs. We probably won't employ you." I was insulted. But tenacity, persistence,
Yeah.
being relentless in your pursuit when you know what you want. You go through that. I had to go through. I realized I had to go through that because if I didn't and my journey was smooth, I won't identify with a Zoda who's looking for articles,
Yeah.
who has no vehicle, no prospect of ever securing a vehicle. I won't.
Yeah.
So I had to go through that. I got one guy. This is very emotive for me, and I'm sure there are a lot of prospective attenders. I need to share the story, Yvonne, if you allow me.
Yeah,
I had
please.
this guy who I almost named him, called him by name. He said, I'll employ you from Shana Chambers. He wasted 6 months of my time without registering my articles. And then he says to me, "Oh no, I'm taking my practice home." And
What does he mean home in a
he's going
different
to work
province?
from home now. He's no longer going to have an office, and then he's letting go of me. And then he let go of me. And then there was a driver there, may he so rest in peace, Brasipo. Sipo then took my CV, went to a guy in Kensington by the name of, an Italian guy by the name of Giorgio Casaselo. I then went to Casaselo. He paid me 3,000 rands. I was grateful for the
So
articles.
at the time you were getting no, but attorneys, law firms need to do better. In 2010, you were paid 3,000, and there's people getting paid 3,000 now.
Can you imagine?
No, guys.
Can you imagine?
No.
And that's the minimum now. That's not the minimum now. So 3,000 rands. I took it. I was grateful. For me, it wasn't about the salary. It was about comfort. It was about getting into the profession.
Yeah.
And then I spent about 6 months there. I remember the World Cup was playing there. I was an article clerk at Racanelo at tennis. And then again, Blake's Mapanga, then a big firm, medium to big, with offices everywhere, had a position available for candidate attorney.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm applying. I want a seat. I want to be exposed more. They called me for an interview. Sipo, again, drove me to that interview. Sat there. There's a guy, Stephen and Eugene. I'll call them because I owe some of my, and I need to pay tribute to them.
Yeah.
I sat there and they look at me and they start interviewing me. And then that question again, that exclusionary question. do you have a car? I said, no, but I have a license now.
Yeah,
I've
at
learned
least
better.
you learned something there.
One of them, I think Steve said, no, we probably won't hire you because, we need candidates to be flexible. Now look at God. His colleague here, another director, Eugene Mayer says, no, I'm going to hire this guy. They look at it, they're having a debate in front of me. Eugene says, no, I'm going to hire him. How? He doesn't have a car. He says, no, I'm going to hire him. And this firm is going to buy a car, my department buy a car, and we'll use it
Wow.
for him so that he works here. I was in tears. I was in tears. Then I seeded my articles. George, I accepted. I seeded to now Blake's Mapanga. And I was in the Albertine branch. Now, they bought the Corsa,
Okay.
Baki. Very cute car. I drove around, but then I couldn't take it home. And I was still staying at the student accommodation in West Dean at the time. Now, so I had to commute from West Dean, Auckland Park, to Albertine every day. This one day, before I wrap up the story, I don't have a taxi fare to get to Albertine. And I hustle around my friends. Nobody can help. I woke up at 3 a.m.
Don't tell me that you walked.
I walked to Albertine. I'm talking about when you want something.
Yeah.
I walked from West Dean. I remember when I passed the CBD, there's a bridge, which is an intersection between Heidelberg Road and the R24. Some vagabonds, some tramps chased me.
What?
I was running with my suits. The tire was flipping everywhere. And I managed to outrun them. And I remember that last stretch from on Heidelberg Road to Albertine. You don't turn anywhere. It's a stretch until you get to the Albertine. We were at number 2, 4th Street at the Albertine CBD. Got there. It was something about 8:05 or something. I'm sweating. Getting there, and then this one director comes out. She's in the conveyancing department. I won't call her by name. She says to me, "You're late. What kind of a candidate are you?" I looked at her. I apologized. I went to the bathroom and I cried.
Yeah.
I cried because I'm like, does this woman know
No.
what it took for me to get here?
Yeah.
And I cried. But that day, as I was crying, those were not normal tears. I was crying because I was in labor. And I was laboring Ndanga, who became my first candidate, Nkidi Sako, who comes out of my hands. And now, of late, we'll see Somashaya, my third candidate, who's going to come out of my hands. I was in labor pain. I was laboring for them because I would set up my own practice in 2015, and I would groom young girls, and they would come under my hand. So I had to go through that. It was worth it.
Yeah, and when you think about it in real time, it sometimes feels like it's all for nothing because you tend to question and you say, why do I have to go through this? Why does this have to happen? But what we don't realize is most of the time your biggest call is birthed from pain and some sort of suffering. I feel like all the people that have made a difference have gone through some sort of suffering. You have to go through some sort of, it looks like suffering, but in hindsight, it does look like pruning. Because I think you are a different type of leader because of the things that you went through. I mean, maybe had you had it easier, you wouldn't have been as considerate as you are. You wouldn't have been thoughtful of some of the realities that candidate attorneys go through. You know, I always laugh at Ndanga, right? She's actually a friend of mine.
You know Ndanga?
Yes, we're
My
friends.
goodness. Okay.
She's actually a friend of mine. She told me how she ended up securing articles with you. She says she slid into your DMs on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And to think about it, now I understand how flexible and relaxed you are, where it comes from. Because another person could have been like, why are you DMing me? And I remember she told me how when like you first interacted with her for VEC work or something like that, you had said, well, I might not pay you because I don't have a lot of money. And she insisted. But by the time she was done, you had the money to pay her. And you're like, you know what? I'm paying my dues and all of that. So I think it's really so beautiful to actually witness and also to hear from you and to have an understanding of why your leadership would be the way it is, right? So, yeah.
We had to go through that. And I think it's every man, every woman who's destiny bound must go through what you call pruning, correctly so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think the best leaders aren't made of, easy material.
Yeah.
Leadership, even if you're born with it, the event must be orchestrated to shape that person. Talking about DMs, I answer every single DM I get. Every single one of them, because I don't think one can ever reach a point where you feel you are inaccessible. That's why I did law, so that people can access justice. Today I represent some of the top people, celebrities, politicians, sports stars, but also the lady on the street.
Yeah.
Without a name. That's the diversity. A firm that I was an equity partner for 2 years. And I left the firm last year to go back to my practice. I fought them because I didn't want to increase my fees. At an equity partner level, they said, no, you need to double it. I said, no, I still need to be accessible. So I'll catch up with profits along the way. But as long as somebody there can see me and say, if also I can get best representation at the most affordable rates, well, I put my hand up and
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the purpose of the law is not exclusivity.
Oh, yeah.
The main purpose is inclusivity, because, I mean, then what is the use for us to serve justice if we're only going to serve a particular people? Because we're already in a generation, or rather in an era, where many people, like particularly previously disadvantaged people, are excluded from society, from the benefits of the economy, and so now if you don't have somebody fighting for that right for you, who's a lawyer, then it sort of defeats the whole purpose of you existing. Because, I mean, who else is going to fight for you if a lawyer is not going to fight for you, or if you're not going to be able to afford a lawyer? Because already as is, lawyers are like a scarce resource, because we are, in general, in essence, we're quite priced. I mean, if we could do pro bono, but unfortunately already there is a price tag. So I think I do respect the fact that you've always had the lower class in mind as well, to say, in as much as it must be a profitable business, but also I shouldn't be inaccessible, because the very essence of the law is to protect the vulnerable groups,
Absolutely. That's what makes us sleep at night.
Yes.
There's a huge gap, a yawning gap between law and justice. And I feel that some of what I call righteous activism and righteous lawyers help to bridge that gap, that divide. Law doesn't necessarily translate to justice because, as you correctly say, it's inaccessible. People that really should be, recipients of the law can't access it because
they're also victims of that law.
They're victims of, come from an apartheid dispensation, but also affordability.
Yeah.
He who has the deep pocket gets the best lawyer, however you find best lawyer, and therefore they can buy justice in that. That's a travesty.
Yeah,
that's a travesty.
Okay. So how was your transition like from university into the workplace? Do you think university prepared you for the workplace?
Again, no.
You were shocked.
An emphatic
I remember
no.
I was so shocked. I'm like, oopsie.
No.
So I'm handling real life situations here.
The theory was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I was with one of the most passionate group of people you had. We would argue S versus Makanyana ad nauseum.
Yeah.
We would deal with Bear versus magistrate and talk customary law.
Yeah.
In every area of the law, the passion was there. But the reality check, when we all walked into these offices now to see the law is taught in lecture rooms and the law as it is, day by day, there was also, again, a rude awakening. First and foremost, you hardly do law in articles.
Yeah.
Because you're making copies and you start saying, hey, I'm literally a glorified messenger here. Now you've got some flex because you've got a degree. I've got an LLB. It's an honors LLB degree. But I have to, again, make copies, run around, But you sort of, while making copies, you read so that you understand, okay, this is what's happening here. Law of civil procedure, okay, so they have filed here a notice of motion. What do I file next? Oh, I see. And you see exactly they taught you, at least you try to combine what your lecturer had taught you, and you see it playing out here. Maybe you haven't learned the drafting skills because you learned that along the way. But you can't simply be pushing paper. Immerse yourself. That's what I did. Go to the principal. Hey, you file this. Take me through your arguments, I did articles not long ago 10 years ago now, or 11 years now, yeah. But still, when I did articles then, there was a principle that you can't leave before your principal.
Yeah, there was
You remember that?
Yeah.
Now, I had a principal who left at 9, 10. I don't know whether he was having domestic issues at home. He never left.
Yeah.
I had to sit there, even if I had no work,
So you just sit there.
and leave like at 11 at night, because he must leave first. But it's that time I started using profitably. You know, that's that time I started writing, I started reading the Thinker magazine, Isupaha's journal. I started reading religiously during that period, because I really can't say I was billing. And then I started thinking about being a public intellectual. Because the more you read, the more you have opinions. I decided I'm going to write an article for the Thinker magazine. It was one of those evenings, late evenings at the office. And I wrote about bond freeze, as they call them, and their prospect and education and OBE. And I was intending it for the Readers Forum, so I wrote and I sent it. I forgot about it. Then Zain, Dr. Isupahat's PA, calls me and says, "Hey, the doctor wants to meet with me." Yeah, sat down, Hyde Park. Dr. Isupahat says, "No, I'm going to publish this article, but not in the Readers Forum. It's going to be one of the main publications." Now, it's Michael Pryor, it's Adekeya Adebayo, it's Thabo Mbeki, it's Joel Netjitsenze, it's Bongani Lutu.
You are sitting there with the Thabo Mbeki.
I'm featured. I'm featured. Then he says to me, "I'm not gonna only give you that. I'm gonna publish this about Bonfit, but you are a labor lawyer. I'm gonna give you a space to write about
Labor-related issues.
Yes. Then my first article was about the automatic terminations in terms of the Educators Act, whether it will survive constitutional scrutiny. That was my first article. And I didn't know that it circulates in India, the Thinker magazine. Pahad gives me a call, and he became my first mentor, by the way. He then gives me a call and says to me, "The Indians are looking for you. They've sent an email. They said, that guy, we want him to come speak at the IL conference, Indian Society of Labor Economics, in Ranchi in India. SICA 2014. This is now where we are.
Yeah.
And I haven't been on a plane
Wow.
before then, because I watch these investigative channels and I love them. But I would watch these air crash investigations
You're
and
just
it'll
like,
freak me
I'm
out.
not going on a plane.
I'm not. I had to fly to India and be in a conference. I was the only African delegate in that conference, and I wrote and I spoke about it. That was the start. That was the launch of me as a public intellectual view and also as a labor lawyer. Because when I came back from the trip, they published a conference journal, and my paper was there. Now all the big firms are looking for me.
Yeah,
I
everybody.
had Bowman calling me.
Yeah.
I had Cliff Decker calling me. I went to these discussions, as they call them. And the rest is history.
That's just so brilliant, right? And also, again, it's very interesting how a time that you considered as it could have been daunting, given that you were wondering, why am I supposed to stay here until 10 or 11? Why isn't this person going home? You actually then end up utilizing the time to unlock a particular rather talent, I think, because it's obviously always had been embedded inside of you, but you just had to unlock it through reading more, researching more, and writing more. So I think that's why sometimes, to everybody at home, sometimes don't be a complainer, right? Utilize whatever space, opportunity you have to better yourself, right? Don't be one to be found to always complain. I mean, it's good to stand up for yourself and all of that, but sometimes when there's that vacuum or when there's that space where you can do something else to improve yourself, do it, because you never know what it's going to lead to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
Then, okay, fine, you get admitted and you're done with your articles. Before we go into you being done with your articles, what's your thought process surrounding now having 5 board exams as opposed to 4?
Jeez. I mean, we struggled with 4.
Yeah.
As it was. You had to write these back to back. I haven't really applied my mind as to the rationality of it. I hope that the intention is that they are better prepared. I really hope that that's the intention, and the intention is not to cut out, sieve out, make it more exclusionary. I just hope that the whole point of it was that maybe the 4 wasn't that balanced. Now we need to balance it out.
Spread it to
and
the
spread
fifth
it.
paper.
Yeah, to the fifth. I just hope that if that's the intention, then I'm all for it. But I must tell you that those 4 papers were the exams of our lifetime.
Yeah.
I remember I wrote at what was the dome. That's where I wrote my boards.
Yeah.
I would ultimately go to concerts, but I never shrug off those 4 days because I wrote all
back to back. Wow.
back to back.
Yeah.
I was under pressure. I had to be admitted.
Yeah.
And I wrote, and I was stressing over these 2, over all of them. Estates and bookkeeping. For some reason, I end up getting the best marks of all the 4.
Really?
In the 2 that I would cry about in prayer and say, Lord, if you give me this, I promise you.
Yeah.
and those 2 were the best ones. Over civil procedure and what was the other one? Ethics.
Ethics. Because ethics is always mooring people.
But ethics wasn't ethics as it is now.
Okay.
I mean, my time, we thought, you know what? I mean, I wrote in 2014.
Okay.
We thought ethics tick before even writing.
Okay, so ethics was an obvious
It
pass.
was obvious. The issue was always, procedure was also a tick. The issue was always either estate, and I remember I went through Van Eck for both
Van Eck
bookkeeping,
classes,
yes, bookkeeping and estate. Twice. When he was here in Randburg, I was here, and he went to Pretoria, I went there. Because I'm like, I must, even if it's the same thing over and over, if I can't count, I must be in his class. I will pay the money. And but now the ethics that we wrote clearly is not the ethics
It's not the same.
Because people
ethics
are,
will more.
my goodness.
So I think now ethics has become, I think it's very similar to Mets Lit in that it's so easy to pass and so easy to fail.
Yeah.
So like there's a thin or faint line. You could easily pass it or easily fail it. So now you can't, I think you can't just BS it. You have to go in there fully prepared.
And the fact that it's everything.
Yes. So it tests your knowledge on all the other papers. So
That's
if you're
the
not
thing.
prepared for paper 1, paper 2,
You're not
and
gonna
paper
make
4,
it.
you're not going to make it.
Exactly.
Okay. So as a person that's running their own law firm, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered?
Sure. Firstly, when I started, I started my practice downtown Joburg. Being an underdog, it has advantages, but at first it's a daunting thing. Your address, your location was, you're from town.
Yeah.
And number 2, you are just one man and you think you're going to take these titans. I was blessed with all these big firms as opponents from the start.
Yeah.
Either representing someone in there who's been dismissed or whatever the case is, but always my opponents have been these top 5 guys. And so you felt, you felt the biasness even with commissioners. Without them saying anything, you could see, okay, the way they look at this guy, they look at me.
But you know what? I think another thing, just to be fair, right?
Yeah.
Already, a person, when you compare a person from a big firm and a small firm, already even aesthetic or presentation is different because they are paid well enough to look a particular way.
The part.
In a small firm, you're paid enough for transport. You're paid enough.
I accept that, but I looked up. I dressed up for tomorrow.
Okay,
that
you've
was
always
my mantra.
been that guy. Okay,
I dress up for tomorrow, so I would wear striped print suits. You won't say I'm a Joseph. Only when I tell you, okay, I'm Bongani Kanyile Galutuli,
from Joburg CBD.
Bongani Kanyile attorneys in CBD Joburg. And okay, we thought you're from. So there's always that aura of, sophistication that was intentional. So the first thing I before investing in cars or anything, I invested in my wardrobe.
Presentation.
That helped. But still, you felt that the stereotype. You felt, that undermining, whether you're in a courtroom or, but you take that within your stride and you realize that the more I would say to your ndangas of this, I would say, you gotta be persistent until you don't need to introduce yourself in those arbitration proceedings. It is a joy to walk in the CCMA now. You get there, Mr. Lutuli.
Yeah.
you know, you already your client feels, oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right, my
I'm with
attorney
the right
is
guy.
known, you know, or
Yeah.
court. You get
Yeah.
there, oh, Mr. From a judge before you
Yes.
even say I'm sorry, so. But it's hard work.
Yeah.
You build on that. So all that could have been a disadvantage. I took it within my stride and I worked on it consistently. I told myself I'm not going to do road accident fund with all due respect to all my friends who do that work. I said everybody is opening up practices that they're doing that kind of work and they're doing well. Easy money it seems, but I'm just gonna choose a specialty. So when Marikana happened, Marikana was a confirmation for me to be in labor law. It's a breakdown in industrial relations and bargaining. I thought we need more sober heads there, and that's when I chose industrial relations and labor law.
Okay.
Now, when I persisted on my craft, you know, that's when at least now I got the attention of these big firms, and of course they want to swallow you the moment they see potential.
Yeah.
You know, and the trappings are there, you know, big salaries and all of this. You know, but again, at the end of the day, is why did you start in the first place?
Yeah.
That's always a critical question. And I, especially last year, I reached that crossroad in my life where I'm like, again, Bongani, why did you start? It was not to get rich.
Yeah.
Of course, it's great to live
A comfortable
comfortably.
life.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful, but that's not it.
Yeah.
Money will follow.
Yeah.
Money always follows the energy.
True.
It follows the passion.
Yeah. And it
We
even
ch-
follows mastery.
There we go.
Yeah.
We chase after these things that should be chasing us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I could preach today
Yeah.
because seek ye first the kingdom of
Yeah.
God. You know, goodness and mercy shall follow me. All the days. We must pursue excellence. That's what we should pursue. These other things will run after us now.
Yeah.
I'm in a position now, by God, where I just sit and next thing is just doors opening. Hey, can you come to this? You know, I just got invited to Miami. I'm gonna be delivering a keynote address on the 26th of May.
Wow.
In
That's
of
nice.
June in Miami at a key leadership conference for women. I never went there and who was looking for a speaker. You mentioned top 25 hours in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Never dreamed of that. I was appointed best top 25 legal rising stars. India, again, went back to India in April on a conference there. I was in Dubai when the storm happened again in December. All of this, you speak life into your career. You speak prosperity. You speak success. You say, I'm the head and not the tail.
Yeah.
You look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm the best labor lawyer in
Yeah.
town. You say it until you believe it. You say it until it's part of your DNA. And I've stopped having faith in it. I know it. I live it. You know?
No, yeah, that's brilliant. You've got interesting titles to your books, right?
Yes,
The one, Struggles of Visibility, ne?
Yeah.
And then the other, Not Afraid.
Not
What
full
is
of greatness.
Not Afraid of Greatness.
Yes,
What
yes.
is the inspiring, what's the inspiration behind these captivating titles?
You know, the struggle for visibility came through an inspiration. It was Tembega, Advocate Tembega, to be delivering a lecture at, I think it's Fort Hare.
Okay.
And I was in the process of writing my book. I hadn't titled it yet.
So you were just writing
was
without a title.
I was just writing because my books are more of a compilation and codification of either my writings or the cases.
Okay.
So it's easier to write in that way.
Okay.
And then there are chapters the way I tell narratives of where I grew up in my formative years. He said something along those lines, and in passing, I don't even think he thought about it. He was talking about the first lawyers and intellectuals that we've had, your Solim Simangas, if you read his book,
Yeah.
The Land is Ours. He then says, all these lawyers were struggling for visibility.
Okay.
And then I'm like,
That's the title.
there we go. The
Yeah.
struggle. It's for the first time I'm paying tribute and conceding this point where I got the idea from.
Yeah.
And I'm like, struggle for visibility. Because in the book, I deal with the celebrity lawyers. If you are not advocate so and so, you won't get the brief. I have a mixed feelings about the term black excellence. It's positive because it highlights, the excellent work we do, but it seems exceptional as well.
Yeah.
As though excellence is not usually associated with
Did with
blackness.
us. Yeah,
So
true.
therefore, black excellence because
Yeah.
you are a black that's standing out. So I have that mixed relationship with the term, and so I speak about the issues of having a few celebrity lawyers who are entitled to these briefs we will eat from the crumbs, the rest of us. And I speak about, visibility in court, visibility at these forums that you just spoke about. And somebody asked me in the writing of the second book, Not Afraid of Greatness, where and it's my editor Sunyat, the famous Zimbabwean writer Sunyat.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
she
okay.
edited my book.
Oh,
So
nice.
Sunyat was going through my chapters, and she says, "Are you not one of them? Those that you're criticizing?"
Okay.
I said, "No, I didn't think I'm at the level where I could say now I form part of the exceptional crowd, But it made me reflect.
Yeah.
Because as we go through life and different stages, we are unaware, and I think it's the wisdom of God that He keeps you sheltered at the enormity of your stature.
Yeah.
Like when people make comments, you get surprised. Oh, really? You talk about me? Thank you. I didn't know I'm making such an impact.
Yeah.
You're so oblivious because you're busy living that you don't pay attention to how the people view you.
Yeah.
And now suddenly I became visible. Suddenly at malls, hey, Bongani, LinkedIn,
Now you
hey.
are that guy.
Now, and I'm like, I didn't know. And perhaps God insulates us and covers us so that it doesn't get to our head.
Yeah.
And our heads get swollen.
Yeah.
So Not Afraid of Greatness is more also just as struggle for visibility, a prophecy that I know my destiny. It's enormous. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
But what is greatness? Greatness is not the following, the likes. Greatness is simply living your purpose. The Bible says David served his generation and died. Now, when you're able to discover your purpose and serve your purpose, you are great. Frantz Fanon says, as a Pan-Africanist, I always quote him, says, each generation out of relative obscurity must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it. Once you fulfill it, my argument I submit is that you are great. That's it.
Beautiful. Love it. What are the requirements of becoming an acting judge or a judge? Like, can you become an actual judge without going through the process of acting?
No. You actually need to act.
Okay.
And you have to act first before you are appointed as a judge, because when you get interviewed in those JSC interviews, they look at how soon do you give your judgments? Are they late? The quality of your judgments, have they been overturned on appeal? And so it's actually, you serve as an act judge at the leisure of a judge president who invites you.
Okay, so you get invited.
Yes.
Okay.
Who thinks you are now suitable. My mentor, I'm mentored by Edwin Cameron, Justice Edwin Cameron, wrote to me one day in 2023. He says, Bongani, you are ready for acting. I said, no, Justice. He says, no, you're actually ready. And as I said that, he sent me an article at Labour Court about Labour Court. I think it was from Judges Matter. They were complaining about the delay in the judgments. And he said to me, you are ready. I said, hey, Judge, I'm not sure. But my prayer had been that when I make 10 years in practice, I become an acting judge. That was my prayer.
Yeah.
So again, ended up becoming a central point for me. I was in New Delhi in March, I think March 9.
Yeah.
At a conference by Let's Talk World. That I went to the hotel where I was and I switched on my mails. Here's an email from the office of the judge, the acting judge president at the time, who's now judge president, Rashid, saying, I'm inviting you to act. Sure. I jumped for joy. I shouted at that time because I felt spiritually I had to be in India for this to happen clearly, because some of the people I look up to in the profession are from that place.
Okay.
Whether you talk of the Mahatma Gandhi and his philosophy of Satyagraha, or Judge Chandrasekhar, who have been a follower, also from there. So I felt like time and place matters. When those two are aligned, purpose explodes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't by coincidence that I got invited while I was sitting there. And I remember the year before I was in 2023, I was at Gqeberha, at the Labour Court, running a year-long trial. And I took a picture sitting And I would post that picture when I announced my appointment. Very naughty, but I did it. I was too excited. So I said, I took a picture of me sitting. It was during a break, and I'm sitting there at the judge's seat, and I said, sent this picture to somebody. I said, "This is me in a not so distant future." We had a nice moment about it. But God being God, I made 10 years in practice in 2024.
Yeah.
It is at 2024 that I got appointed as an acting judge.
Wow.
And I sat at that seminal year. So be careful what you pray for, because God might just answer.
Yeah.
And He always does.
Okay.
When we're ready for it. And I think I still have a lot of things to learn in the profession. But I felt that I had built quite serious legal temperament to be able to pass the assignment.
Yeah.
When I sat for my first stint in June to July, one of my first judgments was reported. Kolanisi versus Department of Sports, Arts and Culture.
That's beautiful.
And it's been shared as I speak to you now. It's circulating still on social media as people are dealing with the fiduciary duties and employment law relationship, whether all employees or fiduciary duties. And I wrote, and it's reported. One of them, and again, my judgment on appeal, another judge friend of mine, Moshwana, sent me the day, look, your appeal is also reported now. So again, if it's God, it's gonna be easy.
Yeah.
T.D. Jakes says, an anointing in his definition. He says, is there anything that makes life easy? That's an anointing. It's not preaching. It's not praying. It's not healing the sick. It's anything that makes life easy. If preaching is what you're called for, then the anointing makes preaching easy. And so that's been what I pray for every day, and that's the grace of God.
Brilliant. Love it so much. I guess the biggest thing to becoming where you are is excellence, showing up and actually being visible, because I mean, also it has taken constant obedience to show up at all of these shows and actually deliver, because you could have been graced for it but not deliver, but you have met God where He has graced you, and you've showed up excellently. We are out of time. Time went by so fast. Thank you so much for honoring my invite. I truly appreciate it. In closing, what is that one skill that you think every person must learn? And what is that one book you would recommend a person to read?
The skill that everyone must learn in the legal profession.
Generally.
In general.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a skill. I think it's a virtue. Humility.
Okay.
I think in everything that you do, the most gifted people and the people who enjoy their gifts and its longevity, because it can be taken away, are people who are humble. Yeah, I learned this from people like Steve Compella, who's a client of mine and a big brother I look up to. Humility. Yeah, whether you're talking of more flavor, again, a friend, humility. Yeah, these are people who are masters in their craft. So humility is what can take you up. The Bible does say, He will lift you up. Humble yourself by the side of the Lord. He will lift you up. So that's one thing that I think, a virtue that we must all possess. And then that one book, I really, really think that at this time, as a continent, we have to go back to Chinua Achebe. Okay. Again, being a Pan-Africanist, I must recommend Things Fall Apart. Yeah. If you go back there, you'll see their lessons there. Yeah. Especially when we talk of decolonization, serious lessons there in study of Gonko and everybody else. Let's go back to that piece of work. But I could go on and recommend Chimamanda Adichie. I could recommend, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I could recommend Ben Okri. I could recommend Sunyati. All these Pan-African writers, all of them are telling us one thing again. Going back to our source. Who are we as a people? Yeah. And I think we need to redefine ourselves as Africans, as Black people, in order for us to succeed. Thank you so much for your recommendations. For some odd reason, I thought you were going to say the Bible. Oh, no. that goes without saying.
Thank you so much for honoring my invite. I hope to have you back again so that we can delve much more into your role as a judge when you become one.
I received that.
To everybody at home, thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. If there are any questions, you're welcome to leave them in the comment section, and I'll be willingly able to pass them on to Bongani if he's available. He'll be able to answer them. Happy Employment Wednesdays, love and light.